Good afternoon to everybody, and unfortunately I'm the last, so there's not much time. The other thing is I had two great people before me, and that is both Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez this morning, as well as Kurt Pringle, our chairman and Anaheim mayor. And they spoke so much about high-speed rail because high-speed rail is topical today, and therefore some of what I wanted to say is already covered. But I do need to talk and give you a few messages and also talk about PPP. On the one hand, let's start with California is poised to lead the nation by building the country's first high-speed rail line. This project represents the state's commitment to an environmentally friendly and responsible system, better mobility and jobs for Californians. High-speed rail is a cleaner, safer and more environmentally sound approach for the nation and for ourselves. This high-speed rail, and I want to give you the message because it came yesterday from Secretary LaHood as well as from Administrator Szabo, is really the only and first real high-speed rail line that's being developed in the United States, leading the way and being furthest advanced for a 220 miles per hour system that will connect north and south of our state. Distance is important because high-speed rail is important when you can travel at high speeds and long distances. Those are the two things one must remember. They are the backbone or the most important things one must remember when you're building a high-speed rail line. But I want to get more to the project, just give you a very quick update. We are busy with environmental work, as you know. There is a timeline. It's a very important timeline. Many have probably heard we received another $715 million grant yesterday, which, when matched with state funding, with Prop 1A funding, is just more than $1 billion. So, with that said, we've got somewhere between 3.3 billion and 4.4 billion to start the project. And to start the project means we have to look at the environmental process and conclude that by fall of 2011. But importantly is this the slide here as well, and that's the project overall costing and funding. And this hasn't changed. This is the same project data as you've seen in the past for those of you who have followed this project. And it is important to understand that we need a lot of federal funding, and I've been pushing this issue. You've seen a lot of action, not just because of myself, but I think many more people are starting to understand projects of this nature, even with PPPs. Projects of this nature require the dedication and commitment of the federal government as well. Commitment of the Californian government was given by the Prop 1A agreement that the voters voted for, giving us actually $9.95 billion, of which $9 billion refer directly to the project, and $950 million should be used for interconnectivity and improvement of other systems that connect into the high-speed rail system. But it is important also to note the private investment portion being $10 to $12 billion. It's a lot of money, but it is only possible if the upper portion of that calculation comes about. That means, and I've told many people this since I've been around for 4 or 5 months now, that it's the commitment of the federal government, the commitment of the state government is very important. Otherwise, private investors will not come to the party. So, it is also important to note, because I wanted to leave this with many, I know a lot of people are following the project, that we are in this phase now of the selection of where we will start building the line. So, for those of you who are interested, a board meeting of next week, we'll go through the criteria. We'll not make the selection, but we'll go through the criteria which we will use. And that criteria will then be used to evaluate the 4 segments which were pre-qualified for ARRA funding. Approximately a month thereafter, at our next board meeting, those 4 criteria will be applied to the 4 sections, and the board will make a decision where we start. But this is not the reason. I want to talk to you a bit about PPP, just very few slides. And those are the following. The first one is an example of PPP, but from the operations point of view, a concession company, a private investor that took up the interest in operating high-speed rail in Europe, obviously not in the States. This gentleman and his organization, it's not just one gentleman, is the chairman of Ferrari, and they started a company, NTV. They signed a close to $1 billion contract with a manufacturer and bought 25 high-speed rail trains. They have furthermore, you see on the bottom right-hand side, they developed and built and started building maintenance facilities, depots, and this particular organization will start operating high-speed rail service in Italy in 2011, so the trains are already being tested at this stage. And this German, Mr. Di Montezemolo, says this high-speed rail is the perfect means of transportation with energy efficiency as its pillar. So here is a group, a consortium, that have gone and are going into high-speed rail with their own money, with operators putting in billions of dollars to start up operations with their own money. That is possible, and I want you to leave that with the people here. But this is the way the world is moving in high-speed rail, and these are the possibilities that do exist. The second one, unfortunately or fortunately, it's going to be easy for me to skip, because you will see that my previous co-panel member here, who has a lot more knowledge of it, but I was very glad he brought it, because he brought this particular project to you, explained it to you. This is the tunnel between France and Spain, which is a PPP project. We have quite a few tunnels, similar nature, in our system, and we will have similar possibilities to get public and private participation if this is the way that we are thinking and going. These models work, these models are happening in Europe and around the world, and I, for that reason, without knowing the gentleman who spoke today, brought a very similar example. The third example is a very easy one for most and everybody to understand. And that is the example of station development, and area development. On the left-hand side top is the city of Kagagawa in Japan. It was an agricultural-based town, about 120 miles southeast of Tokyo. It was losing its young people, and people were going to the cities. And the remaining population was growing older, and its solution was the Japanese bullet train, the Shinkansen. That gave them the opportunity. They got themselves a station. They raised $120 million. They built a town square and they developed around the station, in front of the high-speed station. And they brought business people back. They brought major buildings and projects back, new accommodation. Real estate became valuable again. Population became valuable again. And the tax incomes and revenues doubled from where they started off a few years before that. I think one must keep such projects and ideas in mind when we talk about high-speed rail, also here in California, in our own state. With that said, and by the way, I come from this private industry. I used to sit on the other side of the table. I was waiting for California to move forward. I was waiting for them to make this project a real project, so that I, with my private, not my personal private companies, the private industry could come together and offer those solutions. Again, we must get the federal government. I told the administrator that yesterday. I told the federal government that many times, and we will continue to tell them. When we get the thing together, it will work. So with that, I would like you to remember one or two things. Even when we select in a few weeks' time, before the end of the month, the portion of the line that we will start building high-speed rail, we would like you to remember that high-speed rail is about connecting cities. High-speed rail means building the complete line from the Bay Area to the Los Angeles and Anaheim metropolitan wherever we will start is the start. It will generate a lot of jobs for all people in California, and it will continue from where we start, and it will finally connect and be in all the areas. Otherwise, high-speed rail does not make sense. So that's my message. Thank you very much.